Welcome to the World Nomads Podcast, delivered by World Nomads, the travel lifestyle and insurance brand. It's not your usual travel podcast. It's everything for the adventurous, independent traveler.
Hey, thanks for tuning in and welcome to our destination podcast. This time we're highlighting Sri Lanka.
It's an island country in South Asia, southwest of the Bay of Bengal, and it's also one of the world's largest producers of tea.
Yum. Now, tea gets a mention in this episode, but our friend Felix prefers to grab a coconut than a cuppa as he lives and works in the hills of Sri Lanka. Phil, you catch up with a guy who runs a volunteer and travel abroad company. You met him at a conference in Edinburgh.
Yep.
It includes Sri Lanka among its destinations. We speak to James, who is the official Guinness-World-Record holder as the youngest person to visit all 196 sovereign nations in the world.
Good work.
Yep, plus much more. But let's get your quiz question to get things underway.
Okie dokie. Sri Lanka has been an important trading destination for centuries, driven by the demand for what native plant? And hint, it's not tea. Answers at the end of the show.
Felix-Weber. He lives in Sri Lanka where he promotes sport for development, peace and social cohesion. Now, basically he promotes the non-competitive side of sports, which is something you can't associate with, Phil. If you play to win.
That's
now, we previously featured Felix as an amazing nomad, focusing on his running, which he does as a way to experience the world and totally inspired by an absolute love of people.
Yeah, look, and he lives in a very strange way. I admire the way he lives. It's a very basic way of living. He's got a room with a toilet and a shower, but otherwise no facilities. In fact, he actually camps inside his room and prefers to sleep on the floor, but that gives him protection from the mozzies, and he says it's where he sleeps the best.
That's actually true for the last 6 months. So I moved now from the mountains to the east coast to a place called Particular, where it's almost every day very sunny and hot, but last night it just poured down and rained and my room got completely flooded and everything actually. But luckily I actually pitched my tent outside at the sports ground, so I only found the latest flooding in my room this morning and had a peaceful night out on the sports ground.
It wouldn't have ruined much because you also revealed that you're a minimalist. You travel with whatever you can fit into your backpack.
Yeah, that's true. So basically, 80% of the times when I'm moving around, I have everything I need with me. So I have a small tent, a sleeping mat. Here in Sri Lanka, I don't really need a sleeping bag, so I just have a thin inliner or a sheet. And then basically just food and water and my running shoes. That's basically all I carry with me. When
you go to a new place in Sri Lanka, what do people make of you? Do they think you're a bit of a nut?
Oh, last podcast you called him a hobo.
Yeah, they're not really used to, especially foreigners, just running through villages or running through the tea plantations or the rice fields, and so they're just interested. And it's been a wonderful journey for the last 4 or 5 months where I've been living here. And also last year I was here for 3 months and just been fantastic all the time.
We know that you love people and it's one of the things that inspires you to travel. But tell us about the beauty of Sri Lanka.
And I think Sri Lanka, people-wise as well as scenery-wise, it's so diverse. Like you have different cultures here. You have the Hindus as well as the Buddhists, Christians, and also the Muslims. And this also applies for the scenery. You have like beautiful beaches, like this pristine white sand beaches with palm trees. You sometimes even have a small swing on it. So you can just enjoy your time on the beach. But then only like about 100 kilometers further, you are in the mountains, which go up to 2,500 meters. And so peaceful. You have waterfalls everywhere, and you have also tropical rainforests with all the fauna diversity you can imagine. Like the other day, 2 days ago, we were driving to Particular and we saw 3 elephants just at the side of the road, and it just makes your day just moving through this country. It doesn't matter if it's on your foot on your feet or being in a vehicle.
You don't have to go far to go from, coastal to mountainous. That must be really amazing thing to have at your doorstep.
It is, and a funny thing is, sometimes it's only 100 kilometers, where in Australia or for German standards probably would take you an hour, but here 100 kilometers sometimes take you 4 to 5 hours. And then actually, because it's windy roads, it's traffic, people always stop at the side of the road to have a cup of tea or have just a snack. So traveling in a vehicle takes a very, very long time here, and it's very tiring. And that's why I find it so refreshing actually just to run also long distances, because I move maybe not at the pace as I would in a vehicle, but it's not that much slower. So it's actually a big advantage that.
Yeah, but it's pretty hot there at the moment. How many miles or kilometres can you run before it's just too exhausting?
It really depends. Like, I normally always take a bladder with me because, like, I've had it once on a 20-kilometer run. I was so dehydrated, I was urinating blood. And so it's very, very hot and humid, and sometimes it's very tiring and not as much fun. But what I do sometimes when I want to go from A to B, because I know people are so interested and generous and welcoming, I just run, and I basically know for a fact that a tuk-tuk or a motorbike or someone will stop and just ask me if I need a ride.
You clearly like the Sri Lankan people, and they seem to like you as well. What is it about it? What do you find? What do you find is the thing that makes the connection?
I think the simplicity of things. Normally, because they don't see me as a normal tourist who has a pockets full of money. They're just interested why I live this lifestyle, and it's not about materialistic things. It's not about money. It's just they want to offer me a tea to sit down with me and have a quick chat, even though language sometimes is a barrier. And I think that's the beauty of it, that even though we cannot communicate verbally in detail or perfectly, we still manage to find ways how to get along and how to communicate. We use our hands and feet, and I just feel comfortable with the people. How
good's the tea in Sri Lanka? You say you drink a lot of tea with them. How good is it?
I actually don't, because they put so much sugar in it. They either have milk tea or plain tea, but put I don't know how many teaspoons of sugar they put in it. So I actually stay away from the tea most of the time, and I prefer the coconuts by far. So I have a coconut at least one every day. But sometimes I have a cup of tea when I'm just like my sugar levels are down and I'm tired, then I have a cup of tea, but otherwise it doesn't really taste like tea anymore.
No, I don't have sugar in my tea. Can't you just say that though? No sugar?
Most of the time they would just prepare liters of tea. Like, for example, here in the college we get 4 times tea a day, and they just like have this big barrel where they just pour the tea out, and it's pre-prepared. So you can't. Sometimes you can ask when you go to a small restaurant or a small shop. You can ask for plain tea, and then it's like good tea. But otherwise, it's always full of sugar.
How about next time you're running through a tea plantation, you just grab a couple of leaves and dry them off yourself and make your own tea?
Yeah, I could. I actually slept in a lot of tea plantations, because normally in the morning the mist is just sitting in the tea, and it's just so beautiful waking up you cannot see anything except fog and the lush green tea leaves.
Is the environment fairly pristine, the beaches and through to the mountains?
The environment itself, yes, but littering is a big problem. If you go through more populated areas, the beaches are full of litter, and they don't really have the awareness of how to keep the nature as it's supposed to be. And like, even in the college here, like, sometimes it's very dirty and you can smell it, and then with the heat and humidity it just doesn't take long until you can smell basically every item of litter. And that's a sad part of it.
You mentioned the college. Tell us about the work that you're doing in Sri Lanka, because you're not just running and eating coconuts, you're actually doing something. Yes,
so my role is here basically to bring people from the various ethnic backgrounds together. So what I do here at the college, I teach normal physical education lectures. So this morning I just had a running class where I just taught them about the different running techniques. But my main role is I organize exchange programs between different colleges.
And that's not something you could have done, a dozen years ago, because that's the basis of that entire conflict, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the Civil War ended in 2009. And since then, it's been relatively peaceful, but you can still feel there are a lot of prejudices and tensions between the different ethnic groups. But a lot of times it's because the people have never interacted with other people from the different ethnic groups. And that's why I think such a exchange program is quite sensible, just to bring the people together and actually see they're basically the same people. It's just that they have different beliefs, but some of them have the same interests. They actually eat most of the time the same food, and they're just pretty much the same. I think that's how you can just show the people. It doesn't matter what religion you have or what you believe in. It's just you can make friends with anyone.
Ninad Sharma runs IDEX, a volunteer and travel abroad company where you can get amongst the culture by taking part in very ethical volunteer abroad programs, at the same time developing yourself and making new friends during travel.
Nice.
Sri Lanka is one of the program destinations, and I caught up with Ninad at the WISTIC conference in Scotland to find out more.
Well, our job is to help two sets of people. One is the young travelers, of course, and the other is the local people of the country. Sri Lanka, for example. And the way we do it is we would prepare an opportunity to travel, wherein a young person would be well taken care of in terms of their food, their stay. They would be given organized opportunities or options to immerse in the local culture in the form of meeting families, interacting with students. And the core part of the program would be for them to engage in a meaningful way, in an impactful way, with local communities that need some degree of help. Now, what that means is that if you look at any of the countries that are still developing, Sri Lanka being in the point in case, there are schools that could use an additional English teacher.
Yep.
There are women's groups that could use somebody to come in and tell them about how to use PC. There are even monasteries which would benefit from learning English from a real English speaker, because many times there are no English teachers around. There would be schools that would benefit from their walls being repaired or sports classes being run. Now, what we do is we take the local need and design it in a way that a young person, can actually contribute to the need, even though they may not have the language skills or the work experience. So our job is to facilitate through our knowledge to help these young people participate in a program which is enjoyable for them and useful for community members.
And when we were talking earlier, you said there's no shortage of projects that need work on. So we're talking about developing countries in the Asian region all over.
Yes. You look at schools, you look at daycare, you look at health, you look at women issues, you look at, rights or facilities for the differently abled, you look at orphanages, you look at facilities required for the elderly. There is a need everywhere. There is a need. I wouldn't say necessarily there is an acute need, because very often, if you look at the disadvantaged in the mainstream media, we get shown, heart-wrenching pictures of, starving people in Africa or filthy slums in Asia. And that is definitely there. There's no doubt about that. But there are even sections of the society which are much easier to access, which are much easier to go to, and still make a contribution, which is as valid as any other.
But of course you're aware that this area has become a little bit tricky, that you've got to make sure that you're not actually taking a job from somebody else, that you are contributing in a meaningful way. So how do you manage that?
Well, I think the fear, if I may say, of taking jobs away is unfounded. If I give you an example of my home country, India, if a well-run school would have an English teacher that wouldn't really be able to speak more than a couple of lines of English. All right? So we're not really replacing any jobs. I mean, there is no way that jobs are going to get replaced by a few thousand volunteers that we come in. What happens is more subtle. It's as I said earlier, infusion of energy, bringing in new ideas, and even the international volunteers who may not believe what I'm saying sometimes, but they act as role models. They act as people who are getting places, who are doing things.
Now, when we first met, you also told me the very interesting story of how you got into this business. Can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. As a young college graduate back in '98, I didn't want to join any mainstream, the so-called professional lines, and wanted to explore what I wanted to do. And so I joined my mother's NGO. My mother was working at a UNICEF-funded project at that time, and she was running a small NGO for women empowerment in the northwestern state of Rajasthan in India. So I joined her, started to help her around because I was able to use computers that she was not able to. But there was just a slight problem. Despite all my work, she had no money to pay any salary to me, not enough even to put petrol in my scooter. So I had to do something. Although I loved the work, it was very interesting. I got to meet a lot of people. And so I started a travel company wherein I started organizing group tours for German and Danish schools and travelers, really. And it was great. We did well, quite possibly because we were able to think outside of the normal tourism industry. So it was not just about hotels and museums. We could do a lot more. But overall, it was dissatisfactory because people would come to India, go to hotels and buildings, beautiful old buildings, but they will not really get to see much of the country, the real country, the daily lives and struggles and sources of joy for the Indian people. And so it was making an income, but it was not very satisfactory at a personal level. And then purely by cosmic karma, 8 young people from Denmark asked us if we could organize something for them at a project. And so we had them come to a women's project in the middle of the desert, really. I mean, the northwest of India is a desert state, desert region. And it was an okay school that was being run by UNICEF. So imagine there is this desert community, and there is this ground which has about 20-30 houses in a circular formation with a school in the middle. And this was a community of nomadic blacksmiths. So it was the first ever attempt to settle down these nomadic communities so that they can get an address and have some running water and education for their kids. And by traditional standards, it was going well. So we had about 30% of the kids of the community attending school. Now that is already an achievement for people who for over 400 years had never settled down at one place. But when we had these 8 young people, within a month that they were spending there, the attendance went over 80%. The kids started to show up, and their cousins started to show up. Their parents started to show up at the school because there was just so much going on. And with millions upon millions of people in India, attention is sometimes hard to find. So we had the local media coming there, we had the local government coming in and providing funds to refurbish the school. And to us it was like magic, because 8 young people, one project, 1 month, and the whole thing just got turned around. And so we had our sort of a eureka moment. We said, this looks interesting. We have something that is travel. It helps people. It creates energy, brings attention. And it can be done with people who have had no prior experience of teaching nomadic blacksmiths kids in the desert of India. That sounded pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And of course, that was our first experience, so we didn't quite know how to do it in the best possible manner, but over the years we've improved it, and so now we can have a first-time, let's say a British young person, come over to Sri Lanka and contribute to the lives of women there. We think it's a pretty cool thing to do.
Thank you, Ninad. Other destinations include India, Nepal, Vietnam and Thailand. There will be a link to the website in show notes. Phil, what's your travel news?
Thailand's Maya Beach, the one where they filmed the beach, you know that one?
Yep.
It's going to remain closed indefinitely. Thai authorities initially said they'd close it for a few months to allow the coral a respite from the hordes of tourists, but now they say it's closed for good. This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, why?
Well, it's been absolutely trashed.
Yeah, I know that, but are they for good, like forever?
Indefinitely, they
Right,
say. So,
okay.
how
long it takes.
coral grows very slowly. So when that comes back, I imagine. Also in Thailand, you can now be fined for feeding the pigeons. Look, this sounds like another one of those draconian military juntas on a rampage laws, but I actually think this is a good idea because scam artists prey on tourists at temples and public squares around Bangkok especially, selling them overpriced birdseed.
Yeah, I told you I got done in Greece, didn't I?
That's right.
Yeah.
So they're cracking that. They also say it's going to reduce the risk of spreading bird flu, flying rats and all that sort of stuff. Okay, testing out my pronunciation again. Are we ready? The Japanese, the Japanese belief in omotenashi, which means to wholeheartedly look after guests. Well, that's wearing a bit thin with the three main hotspots of Tokyo, Osaka and Kyoto drowning in tourists.
Everyone's going to Japan.
30 million visitors are expected in Japan by the end of this year, and locals say they're sick of the overcrowding and the bad behaviour of some of them. Come on, people, be nice. Kim, what started in late September?
Oh, not sure. You tell me.
Oktoberfest.
Getting in early.
Oh, look, it used to be in October years and years ago, but they started a couple of weeks early now because the weather is better. It's just wrapped up without any major incident, thankfully. A few hangovers, I'm sure. But if you missed this year's drinking festival in Munich, now's the perfect time to plan and book for next year. Speaking of heavily visited places, the world's most visited cities in 2018 have been named. I know the year's still going, but, the northern summer's over. Topping the list with 20 million visitors is Bangkok. London, Paris, Dubai is next.
Do you know, I saw a Facebook post or an Instagram post on graffiti, street graffiti in Dubai. It's awesome artwork.
Oh, is that right?
But you would never think of it. The last thing you would think is that you'd be allowed to desecrate the buildings.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty heavily regulated place.
Yeah, but beautiful street art.
I've been in Dubai for about a week. I rather liked it. It's quite good. I wasn't there when it was stinking hot, but I rather liked it. What else is on this list that gets me? We're coming down the list a little bit. Antalya in Turkey, 9 million visitors. Where else have we got? Pattaya, Osaka, and at the bottom of that list is Bali with 8.3 million visitors.
Mecca, that stands out, 9.18 million.
Oh, well, that's because of the Hajj.
Does that wrap up your travel news?
That's my news.
Awesome. Well, here's some news. Our Footprints Network, funded by micro donations, has raised the amount needed for the Women's Economic Empowerment Program in Sri Lanka. It's a focus on vocational training.
The project's goal is to improve the economic well-being of young Sri Lankan women and girls through decent employment and sustainable livelihoods. We have the project coordinator, Raj Kumar, on the line to firstly find out what is meant by decent employment.
In the sense, they have to have a certain income, and also, the employer has to provide all the facilities, good terms and conditions for them. And also career prospects and career path for the employees as well. We are also doing another program like self-employment. When they complete their vocational training programs, we also support them to set up a self-employment. But unfortunately, we are doing these projects. Unfortunately, in the remote areas of Sri Lanka, where from self-employment also, it's a kind of, if they start up an enterprise, small enterprise, it's very difficult for them to get a big income from those small businesses. But we are also trying to promote the graduated young people to go to other districts where they can get more income or more better employment. But unfortunately, the girls from those districts, because of the cultural barriers, they are kind of unable to go to other districts where the population is more, and also it's a better city, the township is much better. But because of the cultural barriers, they are unwilling to go to the different districts.
So what does it mean for your project to have the involvement through the Footprints program? What has that meant to you?
We want to ensure girls and boys going into vocational training programs, especially in the hospitality industry, construction industry, ICT, and the automobile industry. And also we want to ensure girls are going into non-traditional vocational training programs. Generally girls are into like beauty culture, ICT, and then few other vocational training programs. So we are trying to have gender-sensitive career guidance training program to provide all the information about the vocational training programs and the institutes that conduct different types of vocational training programs by the government and also by the private institutes. So the girls and boys, they have adequate, equal information, and then they can choose whatever the vocational training program they want to have it. But the hospitality industry and also in the construction industry, we have a huge shortage of labor. In fact, a couple of days ago, I attended a conference in Sri Lanka. They are trying to bring foreign workers from China, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal to fill the vacancies in Sri Lanka in the hospitality and construction industry. So we are trying to train young girls and boys, especially girls into the hospitality industry. But we really face lots of challenges. But through proper career guidance training program, targeting community members, religious leaders, teachers, principals, parents, and then we are kind of trying to get more and more young girls into hospitality industry.
So still a few challenges there, but so thrilled the Footprints Network was able to help out, and obviously can't be done without your micro donation, so a huge thanks.
And that's right, and we've got over $4 million we've raised now from everybody who's donated, so yeah,
round
big
of
thank
applause.
you. Yeah, definitely.
Well done.
All right, woo-hoo.
Phil, this man is the official Guinness World Record holder for being the youngest person to visit all 196 sovereign nations in the world. It's not only all he's done, but I reckon we'll kick off with that.
It's not a bad effort to start off with.
James, welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Can I ask the first question? How did you settle on 196? Because I thought it was 198.
Well, do you know what? I'm still not sure myself.
No, nobody is.
It's something that's kind of up for debate, and there's 195 sovereign countries, and then plus other regions, territories, and I guess this is where the conversation gets all political about Taiwan and Hong Kong. I think I saw something a few years ago where one big company said they're in 220 something countries. So it depends. It depends what you want to class it as. I guess some people class, like Reunion, for example, in the Indian Ocean, 8,000 kilometers from France, and is that still France? Is it not? Tahiti is even worse. So yeah, I guess people kind of class it as many different things.
Well, did you go to Reunion?
I did actually go to Reunion again. It does feel like a mini little tropical France.
I'm interested in the application process because I've tried to break a few world records before.
Drinking doesn't count, Kim.
No, it wasn't, James. Don't believe him.
Was it a tequila train?
No, it wasn't. I think I have broken the world record for that. No, it was the most bras strung together across this particular bridge. And then,
really?
Then there was another one, like sticking chocolates in my mouth. But the issue is...
Can I just point out, this is not... Can I just point out, this is not random strange behaviour. Kim used to host an FM radio breakfast program. So,
exactly.
All those hijinks that people get up to. She is that mad.
What kind of chocolates? That's the first thing that I want to ask. What kind of...
Ferrero Rochers, James.
I knew you were going to say that for some reason, because it's such a difficult chocolate to eat.
Yes. You try shoving 7 or 9 of those in your mouth. It's not good.
They've got all sharp edges on them.
I know. So I know that the application process is rigorous. It's super strict. In fact,
Yeah.
I was under the understanding that when you're cracking a record, you actually have to have an official from Guinness there to make sure that you're not cheating and you're doing all the right things. So how did you go about it, visiting 196 countries?
Oh gosh, it was not easy, and obviously due to kind of like the kind of whole global nature of going everywhere, it was something that took a lot of evidence. And initially, I kind of thought, hey, a passport's an official document. That should kind of like the visas and the stamps would hopefully suffice and be enough. But, as everyone knows, Guinness do things very properly, and then probably then some beyond that. So it actually took probably over a year to actually get it kind of validated and confirmed, just like the piles of evidence that we have for them, witnesses in every country and photos that were proved in every country, and tickets and travel plans and visas, obviously, as well, et cetera. So, a log of everything that had to be fully kind of verified by them. So it took a long time. I feel for the person that had to do that over at Guinness, because it was a lot of back and forth and a lot of evidence. I think there was one occasion where, like for example, I've been to the Bahamas on a cruise. And like when you go on a cruise, a lot of places in the Caribbean, I was not intending to go to every country or get a Guinness World Record at this point. And so I got off the boat and I was just, enjoying myself as you do. I was like, hey, here's the Bahamas. And then it was only kind of when I turned around and thought, you know what, I need to get the evidence, like, because the many different kind of tick boxes of evidence that you need. One of them is obviously the visas and the stamps. And so I actually got a flight from London to the Bahamas just to go back 3 hours later to London again, just to get a stamp just for Guinness.
That's insane.
So that was, it was like 22 hours of flying with a 3-hour stop over there just to get a stamp.
Well, not only have you done that, but you're the founder and the CEO of one of the fastest growing travel apps called Holiday Swap. It's active in over 100 countries, Phil. And look, if winning a Guinness World Record isn't enough, he's also won the Best New App Award.
Oh, okay.
So he's a high achiever, this chap of ours that we're chatting to. Tell us about Holiday Swap.
So it's actually, I just recently checked with some of the guys, and I was told, I was even shocked myself, we're told it's in 184 countries now, which is so, it's great for our kind of what we're trying to do.
The app's almost been to as many countries as you.
Almost.
Almost, yeah. But no, thanks so much for the kind words, but I genuinely don't look at it in terms of that's a personal achievement. We kind of feel at Holiday Swap that this is for everyone to make travel more accessible. And I kept getting asked by a lot of people around the world when I travel, particularly a younger demographic and millennials. They would say, hey, how did you manage to travel so much? And kind of the common consensus was we'd love to travel more, but we can't afford it. And that's kind of a long age running thing. You've got the mix between the conundrum between the money and the time. And the more money you make, the less time you have because you're working more. So we wanted to kind of create something and a tool that would be able to take out as much of the cost of travel as we can. Unfortunately, I didn't have the money to go and buy a plane and start putting cheap plane tickets on. So we thought, look, the second largest cost, or actually it's slightly the largest cost, is accommodation, which is 28% of what people spend on travel. So we thought, look, most of us are lucky enough to have a bed to sleep in at night. And we thought with the sharing economy growing, why not use that to be able to travel and have a bed to stay in around the world?
I've got a bed and it's available between X dates, and it's a sharing sort of facilitator. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, exactly. It could be a bed, it could be a room, it could be a villa, it could be a huge house, a small house. It could be absolutely anything. Before
we get to the reason why you're about to hit the media, the podcast is on Sri Lanka. Obviously, you've been. What was your experience?
Sri Lanka's awesome. It's I know it's obviously still hugely popular, but I kept seeing it coming up everywhere at the start of this year. There always seems to be that destination each year that everyone focuses on. I think 2 years ago it was Bali, last year it was Iceland, and then at the start of this year everyone was talking about Sri Lanka, and rightly so, because it's so relatively, it's quite untouched, I think, still by tourism. More and more people are going there, but it's a fantastic country. It's the only thing that kind of for me was always a little more difficult in Sri Lanka was it's a bit trickier to kind of figure out your itinerary. But that's exciting in a way. There's not necessarily like a top kind of 5 or 10 places to see. A lot of it, I feel, is like immersing yourself in what Sri Lanka is. And a lot of the south coast is beautiful. I love Kandy and Galle. Not the biggest fan of Colombo, but most people don't. Most people fly through Colombo and kind of use it as a stopping point and get out. But the southern coast and Weligama, if you like surfing, like Weligama and the bay around there is beautiful. And then you've got the complete contrast from the beaches in the south as you head kind of into the middle of the country. Sigiriya was an incredibly beautiful spot. People talk about Machu Picchu as one of the wonders, and Sigiriya again, which is very much the thing that kind of makes Sri Lanka beautiful. And what it is that it's on par. It's parallel with Machu Picchu. It's this completely flat jungle, and then in the middle, this huge rock comes out from it. You can climb to the very top of it, and it's like a little fortress where the population used to live. You can see what it was a great little castle up there because you can see people coming from all around. But I think it's a really good time to kind of go now to Sri Lanka before everyone kind of discovers just how awesome it is.
I'm about to get a little jittery because I have in front of me information which I'm unsure about how much I am to share, but there's about to be a massive global press piece surrounding you. So I'm going to have to throw it to you so I don't ruin anything or say the wrong thing.
Yeah, there's a few different bits coming out, which is super exciting. The main one is an Air Miles giveaway, which was actually when I was on a flight to Sydney. I was trying to knock myself out for the flight, so I'd had a few drinks, and I didn't knock myself out. Unfortunately, after these few drinks, I had a genius idea, which was just to basically give away all of my Air Miles. And I landed in Sydney, and I was thinking, what have I just done? But it kind of comes around in a full circle to the whole thing as to what we do with Holiday Swap, and we want to inspire travel. We want to make it more accessible. We want to make it cheaper. A few people turn around and said, why on earth are you giving away your Air Miles and not using them? And it's about enough to fly around the world 3 times. So just seeing the response and the reaction from people who just got so excited thinking about putting themselves in the mindset of where they could go. And what they could see was exactly kind of what I really wanted to achieve with that. We're doing a bunch of other exciting stuff as well, particularly through Holiday Swap. I'm giving away another pair of flights to anyone that kind of just lets me know through Instagram. James-asquith Travel is my Instagram, and just kind of hit me up wherever in comments or in slide into the DMs if you wish. Everything will be seen.
Everything you need to know about James and Holiday Swap will be in the show notes.
I'm sure you've heard me say before, at World Nomads, we don't just talk the talk, we actually walk it. And Phil, you can't help but be inspired to travel when you're editing, writing, posting, filming or recording these awesome travel stories.
I know. My wanderlust is increasing all the time.
Well, you're going to Italy next year.
I am.
Off shortly on a little micro adventure to far north Queensland.
Yep.
This man, our social media savant, Isaac, recently went to Sri Lanka.
Thanks for having me, or as they say in Sri Lanka, is tutti.
Oh, he's pulled the language on us.
There you go.
How many phrases did you learn?
I learned how to say all the important things. Thank you is tutti. Most you get around with English, so the things I like to learn are sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
The polite bits.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on Colombo? Because James, who was earlier in the podcast, wasn't a fan.
I didn't expect to like Colombo as much as I did. From what I've read, I only booked a night. The city's chaotic, but there are little pockets of charm, and I wish we had more time to sort of dive into those little pockets.
Like what? Like what? How are they charming?
There's an iconic hotel called the Gold Face Hotel, which is right next to the Gold Face Green. Which is an interesting area because what happens in the evenings when the weather's a bit cooler is lots of young people come out, they fly their kites, there are all these little eateries, sort of food stall type things.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there are little things like that in Colombo that are really interesting as a traveller.
This is like their Central Park, is it? This is like their Hampstead Heath to them.
Yeah, Central Park, by the beach, the sun going down. It's a tropical that sort of balmy tropical evening. Heaps of young people out. Lots of lovers. It's a popular spot for local lovers.
And that's okay?
Yeah, it's all good on the Gold Face Green.
Well, tell us about the train ride then. So one night in Colombo, which you regret, can't speak. You would like to explore that a little further. So you took a train to Gaul.
From Colombo, we took a train down to Gaul.
Right.
Okay.
The iconic hotel in Colombo is called the Gold Face Hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
The train trip, I had a very different experience to my partner.
The mother of your child.
The mother of my child. I'll run through the experience for you guys. So we got to the train station. There's not a lot of signage. Lots of people waiting for the train. First attempt, train pulled into the station. We jumped on because we were keen to get a seat because, we were traveling with my daughter who's 4 years old. And just before the train leaves the station, I work out that we're on the wrong train.
Oh.
So grab bags, grab kid, hop off the train, wait for the next train, take two.
What was the sign that you were on the wrong train?
I asked someone, is this train going to Gaul? And he's like, no, this is not going to Gaul.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, because she was down the end of the carriage, and it's like, hop off, this is not the train. When the right train came along, we were a bit slow, didn't get a seat. So Beck sat on the floor with Ashley in the doorway.
Yeah.
And I was standing next to our baggage because I was concerned for the safety of our baggage.
Yep.
Did I do that to you?
Yes.
Sorry.
Travel safety expert Phil.
I was aware, I was alert, not alarmed.
Yeah.
Good man.
So Beck had an amazing experience. She watched the countryside go by. You see, it's coastal. You pass little villages. There are people doing their thing, sort of daily life, scenes of daily life in Sri Lanka. And she had this amazing moment, really. And she thought about life and where she wanted to be, sort of setting 5-year goals. And I was there having a very different experience with the baggage. Going, I've got my eye on you, mister.
And what about a 4-year-old on a train?
She was sitting with Beck, little Ashley, and I like to think she had a good time too. Yeah.
Speaking of your daughter, you said that there is a place that you would go to that you would not take children to. Was this part of the safari or?
The safari experience is not something I recommend with a small child.
Can you explain that? I remember you saying that to us.
Yeah, look, it's. I think the attraction for us was to bring Ashley to the natural habitat of these animals and to see elephants in the wild, and we thought that was the attraction. But the reality is it's very, very hot. These safaris go on for hours and hours. There is, as it should be, there is no guarantee that you will see anything.
Yeah.
And so for a 4-year-old, yeah, it can be difficult. We saw families sort of getting off the trucks and kids crying and parents about to strangle each other and because dad wanted to see a rare sort of cheetah or leopard or whatever. Rethink the safari thing if you have little kids. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Sri Lanka's safari, I had never put those two together. But
so
clearly,
Sri Lanka. If I'm correct, if I'm wrong, you can edit this out.
No, we leave that. We leave that stuff in, mate.
I think is home to the world's biggest mass migration of elephants that all sort of gather at this watering hole at this time of year, and it's a magnificent sight.
I don't care if you're wrong. Sounds great. And Felix, earlier in the episode too, spoke about Phil when he was running or driving with someone, just wild elephants on the side of the road.
Yes, we saw a bit of that. So that's the other thing I wanted to say. For Ashley, we could be driving down the road somewhere and an elephant just sort of rocks up to the side of the car. And that's quite different to being in a bumpy Jeep for 4 hours to see the same thing.
Good advice.
The migration is called The Gathering.
The Gathering.
Happened for centuries. Hundreds of elephants descend on the shores of an ancient reservoir in Sri Lanka's north central district. And I'm not going to pronounce that national park.
No, well, nor am I going to pronounce this festival that you went to, which is a great elephant segue. You said it was pretty spectacular, but you had some concerns for the elephants.
Yeah, look, visually, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced.
What's the name of it?
It's called the Asala Perahera. My apologies if I've said that wrong.
Probably better than Phil.
No.
Did you want to have a crack at that?
No, gone.
And it's a massive parade with traditional musicians and dancers, and you have these elephants in these amazing bejeweled costumes. But yeah, it's a bit difficult to see those elephants. Some of them didn't look entirely comfortable with the noise and the loud music and the crowds around them. So that for me was a bit difficult to process. Yeah. Also a bit difficult to explain when you're traveling with a child why that's okay and when it's not okay.
You wrapped up your trip, family trip, Ngombo.
Ngombo was an interesting place for us. It had a dark vibe, a dark energy, and I think it's to do with the fact that it has been known for child prostitution. That and the fact that there is a lot of Catholic imagery in the town kind of gave it a David Lynch sort of dark feel.
The Catholic imagery that you're speaking of is a hangover from the Portuguese.
Yeah, so sort of remnants from, I guess, early Portuguese settlers came to this. It's a little fishing town by the coast.
And you were saying it's not only is it known for child prostitution, but they actually have signs.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Warning of it?
Yeah, in some places, hotels have signs saying that they don't encourage and they don't support that sort of activity, and we'll call it out.
Yeah. So what would you say to families that want to travel to Sri Lanka?
From my personal experience, there are very few experiences in life that have been enhanced by the addition of a 4-year-old. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was amazing.
So it's a family-friendly country apart from this area?
Yes.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode featuring Sri Lanka. But the answer to your quiz question.
The native plant that has created trade with Sri Lanka for centuries, dating back to about 2000 BC when this product was imported into Egypt. I'm talking about cinnamon.
Oh!
It's native to Sri Lanka. And, so of course that whole spice trade and everything, which, went on during Egyptian times, during medieval times, the Europeans had no idea where it came from because the people who traded it kept the destination secret.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to monopolise the trade. So they made up all sorts of fantastic stories about it came from the nests of birds which flew to some strange island and collected it and things like that. So it was a mystery for centuries. But of course it was the impetus for, as far as Western civilization goes, for all that sort of, exploration throughout Southeast Asia and the Dutch East Indies.
Oh, cool. I thought you were going to say marijuana. Because that's been around.
You can sprinkle that on your feed as well.
All right, download the World Nomads podcast from iTunes or the Google Podcast app, and you can contact us by emailing podcast.com. What is next, Phil?
We are featuring another amazing nomad, but this time it's a couple who swapped living in an RV for sailing the world in a catamaran. Please take me with you.
Yeah, see you then.
Bye.
The World Nomads Podcast. Explore your boundaries.